Hello YouTube, Dave here again. Today I'm going to be taking a look at the Pathfinder 2nd edition Lost Omens Legends book. This book came out around the same time as the Advanced Player's Guide, and I do honestly feel that this one kind of flew under the radar for a lot of people, considering that the Advanced Player's Guide was a highly anticipated release that received a lot of attention. This one here has received or seen some promotion, but it kind of pales in comparison to the Advanced Player's Guide. So that's something that I'm hoping to correct today in this video, just raise awareness of this book, because this is one that I was very interested in when it was when I first saw it on the list of upcoming products. So just flipping it over here, on the back it reads, The Usual Suspects. Every day, unknowns and nobodies strike out to carve their legacy in the fate-forsaken world of Golarion, but they are hardly the first. Meet the figures who rose in times past, clawing their way to the top to now serve as the pillars of the Inner Sea region as it stands today. Lost Omens Legends introduces over 40 of Golarion's most famous faces, each with a rich story that helps bring the setting to life, delve into the web of relationships, secrets, and plots that molds the past and present of the Inner Sea, and seek out mighty paragons for a chance to claim some of their power. This retails for $34.99 US. The Canadian price, I want to say, is around $44 to $47.99, somewhere in that neighborhood. Check with your local game store for specific prices, because that can also vary from location to location. So we're just going to do a quick little flip through here, and I'll just point out some of the things in here. I'm not going to go into each and every NPC that is introduced in this book, and I'll give you my thoughts on the way that this book is structured sort of towards the end. So we're just going to do a little bit of a flip through here, and I'll point out some of the aspects that we have for everything. Here's our table of contents. We have our introduction, and then just the whole list of all of the characters or individuals discussed in this book. We also have our entwined destinies towards the back of the book, and then we have our glossary and index. So again, some decent art throughout this book. I've heard people say that artwork in Pathfinder is sort of one of its weaknesses, and I honestly don't feel that's true, at least not in my personal experiences. I think that the artwork has been perfectly fine. I've actually really enjoyed most of, if not all of, the art that I've seen so far. There may be one or two exceptions, but overall, I think that the artwork has been really, really good in everything that I have for 1st or 2nd edition Pathfinder. So here we get into our NPC description. Some NPCs will have multiple pages, some will only have 1 or 2 pages to them, and some will give you more options to work with than others. The point of this book is, again, to sort of flesh out the history of the region, especially in particular the Inner Sea region, which is sort of the main area that is focused on for a lot of, not all of, but a lot of the hardcovers or the adventure packs that come out. So with this one here, with this individual, Abrogale Thrune II, and I should point out, once I finished that butchering of the name, I suspect, or I know, I'm not going to go pronouncing or pointing out the names of too many of these individuals, because I'm really bad at pronouncing fantasy names. And I know it already. I know I'm bad at pronouncing fantasy names, so I don't need everyone to point it out to me. It's a fantasy name. It's not a standard name that we would have here in North America. So just relax a little bit and let's just sort of enjoy looking through and seeing some of the options that are in this book. So with her, it gives you, again, some of her history. It does give you, for example, she is a lawful evil female human sorcerer. So it does give you a foundation to work off of. The stat blocks are not included, and I will share my thoughts on that sort of towards the end of the video here. So we'll do the flip through first, and then I'll give you my thoughts on everything once we get to it. So some of these individuals also have like a people of note. So this is some other individuals or NPCs that may be either allies or foes to the individual listed in here as well. And it gives you the page references and the books for any of the individuals that you may want to look up. So some are in here, some are from Lost Omens, Gods and Magic, some may be from the campaign guide, so it just gives you a little bit of that there. There's some sidebars on, that may give you some other individuals that they may have connections with as well, that they can just describe here. And again, some just history and detail for the NPC. And then several of the individuals discussed here will also provide with them some sort of either items or spells or feats or class features, or there's an archetype I think in here as well. So they will give you some options for your players if they interact with the NPC in question, or if they study them, learn, discover what secrets they may have learned, sort of thing. So with the queen here, you can gain access to these rare items. So like fiendish teleportation, which is an infernal. So these are infernal contracts. So you would take the contract and you gain the abilities and how often you can use them based on having that sort of infernal contract for levels 11, 15, and 20. And these are all pretty much everything that's going to be introduced here as new options are going to be considered rare, meaning that not just anyone can choose them willy-nilly. You have to generally have a story reason why you may have access to these abilities. So again, you may be someone who has one of these infernal contracts. You may be a worshiper or a follower of the individual. You may study their histories to learn some of the things that they have discovered, and through that research and attention to everything that they've done, may gain access to the ability as well. Also scattered throughout the book are, it looks like, entries for journals, history texts. There's one that looks like it's sort of from a storybook. There's just a lot of, again, really nice looking extras that are thrown in here as well. So this looks like it's sort of an entry from a history text going over some of the information pertinent to this individual character. These could make for excellent handouts if you are going to be using this individual in your campaign. So, like I said, we're just going to go through. Now, some of these NPCs that we're going to be discussed, or groups, because I think some may be groups, they will have a little blurb that's referred to as Familiar Faces. So we're just going to sort of skip over until we can find one here. Again, another, like a letter here with some sketches and stuff. Again, just really cool attention to detail here. And some more items, including a clockwork recorder, lover's ink, palm crossbow, and vestige lenses. Anyway, it's really late when I'm recording this, and I haven't slept well the last few nights. So let's just move right on, shall we? So here's a Familiar Faces section. So this particular NPC here, Azer of Xerxi, or Xerxi, she, because it is a female hobgoblin swashbuckler, she appeared in a previous adventure path. So for her, she was in the Iron Fang Invasion adventure path. So for a lot of the NPCs that were in previous adventure paths, there was going to be a canonical series of events that surrounds them. So for her in particular, the assumption is that she was defeated by the player characters, and that the player characters, that she was defeated by the player's characters, and the invasion was stopped after she was convinced to end it of her own sort of free will. So that may be like the best case scenario sort of outcome. If there's anything that you want to change about that, you can certainly do that. Or if you pick up this book and you ended up running that path in the past, you could certainly change her information or details based off of the events that took place in your own playthrough. But this will give you sort of the canonized version that is what Paizo was at least hoping for when releasing the adventure path. But again, your mileage may vary. So we have her information. We also have, again, some feats here that we have. So there's Xerxes Roads, Deep Dread Claw, and then we have Flamboyant Cruelty. So this is actually a feat. Oh, sorry, the Rhodes one is a feat as well. Okay, I got to read Flamboyant Cruelty. So it says, you love to kick enemies when you're down, or when they're down, and you look fabulous when you do. When you make a melee weapon strike against a foe that has at least 2 of the following conditions, you gain a circumstance bonus to your damage roll equal to the number of these conditions the foe has. The qualifying conditions are clumsy, drained, enfeebled, frightened, sickened, and stupefied. If you hit such a foe, you gain a +1 bonus to skill checks to tumble through and to perform your style's panache granting actions until the end of turn. So again, kind of neat stuff there. And then we have a handout you could use again. So this is the Iron Fang Recruit Manual. So this is for goblins or hobgoblins under her command. So it gives you information like how to interact with humans. So this is how you sort of smile. So you got the nice relaxing calm smile. So you do this one, you don't do this one where it looks like you're about to set fire to their house. So again, just cool little attentions to detail like that I really like. Here we have Baba Yaga. So this is another well-known individual from that's appeared in various RPGs and real-world mythology with her chicken. And she is also a familiar face. So she was in the Reign of Winter adventure path. And as such, the options that she adds is that she can actually be a patron for the witch class if someone is looking to gain instruction or powers through Baba Yaga. And for this one, again, we just have, it looks like almost like a fairy tale book kind of like an engraving, whatever you want to call them, etchings, whatever they are. And this just sort of shows, again, sort of the canonical thing where she was freed at the end of the adventure path and was able to crown the new queen herself. And we get the abilities here. We have the spirit object and the glacial heart. Okay. A couple of spells added here. So yeah, I really like the artwork, like I said in here. Each of the NPCs is well illustrated. This looks really cool here. We have Geb the Ghost King. I feel like he had to have been in Adventure Paths or mentioned somewhere in here as well. Because that name sounds really familiar. And like I said, I don't know a lot about Pathfinder. But again, it gives you the fact that it's lawful evil male human ghost necromancer. So it gives you all that information to build off of. Again, I like this as well. It actually gives you a location, a regional, very generalized but regional map with some locations. And we got some items here. Erebeth Thurblade. I like her quite a bit as well. Half-orc Paladin, which is a class and race or ancestry combination that I've used a couple of times in the past, so I always have a little bit of a soft spot for that. And some more feats. And a focus spell, so the Red Mantis Assassin focus spell. So like I said, there's lots of options in here. As I said, they're all marked as rare, so you're going to have your players, if they want them, they're going to have to work towards them. We have some ancient spells. So again, just a lot of cool options to have in here as well. I actually am making a character to play in a Pathfinder 2nd edition game, and I made a cleric of, I believe the same god that this one here. So this is an NPC that I could potentially change my character's background to include her, just again to make it feel a little bit more connected to the world itself. So I do like that aspect there. Again, some more rare feats or new focus spell. This one, I got like the anatomy thing going on there. Vaccines. Vaccine grants creature immunities to a specific strain of a disease of a level equal to or less than the vaccine's level, and a +2 item bonus on all saving throws against other strains of the same disease. So that's kind of cool. That'd actually be a really useful thing to have, and something you could even build a campaign around. Some more skill feats. Then we have Kavoth Cole. So he is a chaotic neutral male human barbarian. He was in the Iron Gods adventure path, and it looks like he's got sort of a technology infused weapon, which I forget the location where that is, where that's sort of part of that region of the Galarian world, but again, that's kind of neat. Also feels like a little bit of a nod to Starfinder, even though this probably came out well before that, but still kind of neat nonetheless. And we have the Blade of the Black Southern, so that could be, I think that's a great sword that was shown for the character to have. Sovereign Steel, so you get a material that you can use, as well as some items created from it, so armor or a weapon. Tech Rat. The Lick Toad Goblins. I love that artwork. Some different flowers. Lily, sunflower, blue daisy, swamp lily quilt. I like the bear with the eye patch there. Next, the Vanished Wizard King. Neutral, male human wizard. Razmir, this guy, I really, I love the look of him. And this is someone that I really want to build a campaign around. Leader of the nation he forged. Yeah, this guy just looks awesome. So he's someone that I would definitely want to do something with. Sapphire Butterfly, a vigilante. So this is sort of like basically a superhero in the Pathfinder game. So again, cool stuff to have there. Again, I'm sorry if I'm not mentioning everyone's name here. I'm just not going to open myself up to having to be corrected by everyone that's watching. I know I'm bad at names, but you know, it is what it is. So here we have the Whispering Tyrant. So this guy's been in a couple of adventure paths at the very least. So he was in the Carrion Crown adventure path, and he was also in the Tyrant's Grasp adventure path. And I could be wrong because I don't have a ton of knowledge about Pathfinder First Edition, but I think the Tyrant's Grasp adventure path, I want to say that was one of the very last ones to come out for Pathfinder First Edition. It may not have been the very, very last, but it was certainly one that was sort of near the end of the Pathfinder 1E line. And I just, I remember seeing some of the books in my local game store, and just, just the name Whispering Tyrant sounded so intriguing. So this is someone that I'm going to spend a little bit more time reading through, and again, I might want to build some adventures around him. Getting towards the end here. Watcher Lord in Exile, Olthan II, Lawful Good Human Male Paladin, which is, I think, one of the champion paths you can take. Human Fighter, Winsel Starborn, and then some companions, Genie-touched companions. So those were the NPCs. Now here we have the entwined destinies. These are flowcharts that sort of show how some of these individuals are connected to each other, and sort of some of the backstory information to go in there as well. So again, this is a really nice touch to have in this book, and something that they certainly didn't have to do, but it's just such a nice little extra to have in here, that it sort of, again, just sort of pushes, my opinion of this book up a little bit more, because, like I said, this is something that I certainly wasn't expecting to see in this book, but here we have it. So this is something that, again, can be just a much more, quick visual way of knowing, like, if you want to focus on, say, War in the North, then you may want to focus your reading on just these specific NPCs. Mother of Medicine, if you wanted medicine to be a big part of your campaign, like, for example, maybe trying to find a vaccine for something, then these might be the characters from this book that you'd want to look at. So again, just a really, really cool bonus that they threw in there. And then we have our glossary and index, our D20 system license, our open gaming license, I should say, and then just an advertisement for the Gods and Magic book, which was another fantastic book. So that was the flip through of the Lost Omens Legends book. So overall, how do I feel about this now that I've had some time to sort of look through it? Now, I really like this book. Like I said, for me, it's awesome to have, because with these NPCs, with these characters that are important to the history of the setting, it gives me more information to go off of, and it helps me get a better grasp of the Pathfinder world and the Pathfinder setting that I missed out on by not really following it until just like a year ago. A little over a year ago is when I started getting into Pathfinder. So there's a lot of information that I'm missing. So books like this, for me, are fantastic because I wouldn't know them otherwise. I wouldn't know any of these NPCs except for some that I've heard of through like adventure paths or just seeing books at my local game store. Like the Whispering Tyrant is probably one of the only individuals from this entire book that I would know of had this book not come out. And there's just so much great options in here. I love the addition of the rare items, feats, spells, patrons, just all of the options that they provide in here I think is absolutely fantastic. And again, it's something that you can build stories around because the players can't just get these just by leveling up. Like, they need to work towards earning them, and that's always a fun aspect of the game, for at least for me, to work with, so I really appreciate that. Now, the fact that there are no NPC blocks in this book may be off-putting to some people. It doesn't really bother me, and I want to explain that because in the past, the lack of NPC blocks in other products I consider to be a bit of an issue. The reason that it doesn't bother me here is because the Game Mastery Guide for Pathfinder 2nd Edition has a really good guideline or framework to use to create your own NPCs. And this one, at least, it gives you what their ancestry is, what their alignment is, and what their class is, and something other, some other option. So, for example, we have like the vigilante, swashbuckler type of, character that was introduced here. So it gives you enough to work off of that you can build the character yourself. And with those guidelines, it's not going to take an overly long period of time. And you can adjust it to suit the player's level based off of, again, following those guidelines, because it gives you the information to use for the various like character levels of play. So if you want them to come across someone at a lower level and you wanted to stat them out because they may be an adversary or something, like if you wanted a reoccurring villain out of these, then having that process to go through and being able to adjust things later very easily, I think, is just a great combination. And it does sort of promote the idea of having, the multiple books, which from a business perspective also makes sense. So I can understand why they did that here. Now, I wasn't expecting necessarily the stat blocks because of books like the Gods and Magic Lost Omens book, which I was expecting stat blocks, and there were none in there. So just seeing that and seeing that it was like for at least all of the 2nd edition books that I have, the NPC stat blocks really weren't a focus. I wasn't necessarily expecting them here. And I always feel like once you set them in stone, people are less interested or inclined to adjust them or to change them. And I like the idea of being able to customize them because that framework is already there. If the Game Mastery Guide hadn't been released by the time this had come out, I may be a little bit more disappointed or frustrated with the fact that there are not stat blocks in there. But the fact that there are creation guidelines that are very, easy to work with, already available, then it bothers me less from that perspective. And again, the other 2nd edition products like the World Guide and the Gods and Magic already kind of established the fact that the NPCs weren't going to be the focus of the books. Their information or background or histories might be important, but ultimately what their statistics are up to you. Because you may or may not actually use them as adversaries for your players. Again, the Whispering Tyrant or Razmir, even though I really like those individuals and I think they're really well designed in terms of like the artwork and everything, and have a very interesting and compelling backstory, I don't necessarily want to use them as direct villains. So again, it sort of gives you that those options to customize them how you see fit. Another thing with this book is that this isn't aimed directly at a game master the way that a campaign setting book might be. Because generally speaking, campaign setting books are ones that are largely only purchased by people running games in that setting. That's not like 100% the case, and I understand that there are players that buy stuff like that as well. But the fact that this is meant to be purchased by anybody, for me, I can understand again why they wouldn't want the stat blocks in there. So that's why I'm a little bit more willing to accept that they're not in this book than maybe some other things from the past. Because again, a lot of these characters are historical and not necessarily around today. They are ones that help shape the world, but they may not necessarily still be a part of it. The other thing that this is going to bring me to is the question of, how much do I recommend this product? For me, as I stated before, it is awesome because I didn't know any of these individuals. So for me, this really helps me sort of flesh out the history of the setting and maybe to understand how certain changes or certain nations may have been shaped to become the way that they are. So I think that that's great. And that was something that I'm really looking for. Like, these are the kinds of books that I'm really interested in picking up so that I can catch up basically on Pathfinder lore. Now, this is one of the blue-spined books. So it was brought to my attention that the blue-spined books, like this one and the other Lost Omens books, are really meant as sort of a supplemental thing. They're not considered to be like an essential or core product, the way that the Game Mastery Guide is, the Advanced Player's Guide is, and then like the Bestiaries and obviously the core rulebook. So these are meant to be optional things for you to pick up if it's something that interests you. And for me, having all these histories, having all of these individuals to read about, to study, and to maybe get some ideas from in terms of creating my own adventures or stories, or having them be incorporated into a player's background, for them to work towards maybe some of the feats, spells, items, patron abilities, what have you, in here, I think is a really, really useful resource and tool. It's probably, like I said, this isn't the first thing I would recommend getting after the core rulebook, and it may not even be the first of these blue spine books that I would recommend. I honestly would say that I think Paizo's done a good job of releasing these books in the order that I would generally recommend them if you were looking to purchase like all of the books. But this is a great little extra to have, some great campaign stuff you can throw in there. And yeah, I think that this is overall a really interesting book to have, and I'm looking forward to spending some more time with it. And I hope that there are individuals watching this that maybe weren't aware of it before, but maybe want to learn those histories or flesh out their campaigns similar to me. And the fact that there are a lot of NPCs from previous adventure paths, I think is also a great touch. And if you have run those adventure paths in the past with your group and you moved on to 2nd edition Pathfinder, you don't have to use the canon versions of events that are presented in this book. You can actually adopt or adapt, I should say, the campaign to, or the history of that NPC or individual to reflect the events that actually took place when you ran the adventure path. So I think this is a really great product, and if you're interested in the history of the Pathfinder setting and some of the important individuals that help shape that history, then this is a huge, huge recommendation from me. Otherwise, if it's something that maybe you may want to hold off on until you get the core book and maybe the Advanced Player's Guide, or especially the Game Mastery Guide, I would highly recommend having the Game Mastery Guide before picking this up in case you want to make NPCs out of the individuals in here. But it's a solid purchase. It's a decent book with a lot of great information, awesome art, and all kinds of new things you can throw into your game. So from that perspective, I think this is well worth your time. So that's my look at it anyway. If any of you have picked this book up already, let me know in the comments below if you've been able to integrate some of the information or abilities, options in this book into your existing game. Or if you were unaware of the fact that this even existed, let me know that as well. Because, if you weren't aware, now you are, then I at least did that part of the job that I'm trying to accomplish with this video. So once again, thank you to Paizo for sending this to me for review purposes. And thank you each and every one of you for taking the time out of your day to watch this video. So it means the world to me, and I will see you all next time. Take care.